Great. Welcome. This is the last session of the day. After that, you just have workshops. So I hope that you are still fit. You're still kind of here. And I will make sure that you stay here for the rest of the session. The session idea, PowerShell Yin-Yang, was actually building up in my brain because the problem with PowerShell, as we know it, is that we really have hard time to find consensus about good practices. So there are people disagree on those, and it's really hard to find two people that agree on certain things. I won't mention curly braces, curlies on the next line, because I don't want to start fight here. But there are certain things that we all consider, or we should consider, as bad or worse practices. And I will try today to show you some of them. That's one side of the equation. However, I thought, okay, it won't work if I just bash the things that you do wrong. So instead of just doing that, I decided, okay, instead of doing this just like a negative session, I will try to also include some positive sides of PowerShell. So how you can improve your code. And we're actually going to start with that so I can put some honey on your ears first so that you can kind of enjoy the session, and then I will just hit you with the things that I consider as worst practices. Oh yeah, hourglass. It's not that I care, but yeah, I guess others might. Okay, so agenda for today. First, few words about me, then I will mention briefly what the tips and tricks I want to show you. Then we go into them, obviously. After that, I will list the worst practices that I want to describe, again, with some demos. And at the end, will be a room reserved for Q&A. But if you feel like asking a question during a presentation, please feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. It's not like I will lose track, I hope. I mean, it was a long day for me as well, so forgive me if I will do that. However, there's a reserved room for that at the end, so you can just keep your questions at the end. If you don't feel like asking in the middle, I definitely have some time reserved for that. So, about me, I'm Bartosz Bielawski. I'm originally from Poland. I live and work in the Netherlands at the moment. You can find me using Twitter with my handle Bielawb. This is a funny story because it was actually my login name from my previous company. And I thought, okay, nobody will have such a stupid handle on Twitter, so let's give it a try. It worked, and then I stick to it because I didn't even knew that you can change it. And then people started to recognize me by that, so I couldn't change it anymore. You can see my email as well. You can see my blogs. I don't blog very often, unfortunately. I don't have really time for that anymore. But you can find some historical blog posts there. And you can find my work when I do something in PowerShell. I try to make it public using GitHub, obviously. So you can find some of my projects, some of my code, including the code from the presentations that I did, including that one soon over there on the GitHub. So what about tips and tricks? So I will show you a few things that I think might improve the way you code, but also may improve your life because you will save time on not doing things repeatedly or just in a way that may not be super efficient. So we'll look at the loops in PowerShell, how awesome they are. We'll see something about Last of Us, so it's going to be about, well, let's not focus on that one. .where, .for each, so it's the new .for each and the .where methods that you have on all the collections. Goldfish, so if you know the concept of golf, it's like making your code as short as possible. I'm going to show you how you can make your code as short as possible using a for each and where object. First comment, first serve is about, okay, sometimes you have to check something for if it's true or false. I will show you how you can make it more efficient. Awesome variable is about, okay, you have the multiple special variables in PowerShell. I will show you how you can use them for your benefits. I will try to show you the cards and dollars, so the two special variables that you have, and I use them very often. When I first heard about them, I thought they were useless. I look at them as like, why would I ever use this variable? Doesn't make any sense. But the moment and I stuck in my back of my brain, and then I found a few examples where it actually was super useful. And last but certainly not least, I will show you how you can hook into the not found command methods or actually event to do something crazy with Git. So let's drill into demos. Because, yeah, nobody came here to watch me present. I don't have PowerPoint, as you can see. I think OBS is enjoying now because I'm actually using feature of ISC storage. So first thing is that in PowerShell, unlike other languages, when you have a conditional statement or any other statement, you can save the results in variable immediately. You don't have to have like if that $foo equals that, if something else, $foo equals something else. You can just say my thing is equal to this condition. So I can just save it obviously like that, but I can also do something like this. So if I say, so I can save the result string using condition straight away go to the variable. I don't want to have extra work within the loop to make sure that it arrives there. So if I run it, if I would return the results, it will be, in this case, false. Next off, that's one of us. So I kind of forget what I was about to present. Happens way too often. I'm getting old, right? So it's like it's my 30th birthday this year, so that's probably why. So we have a parameter, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to save three variables results from the switch command. Why would I do that? So let's say you have certain condition, and the result of it is not just one thing. So for example, let's say if my bike is blue, I want it to have blue wheels and also blue light. So that's all kind of the same. Here I can do exactly that. I can just say my 1, 2, or 3, my 1, 2, and 3 will be a result of this assignment. So I can keep 1, it will be AND 1, 2 will be AND 2, 3 will be AND 3. What about the where object? So the thing I like about this new .where syntax is that probably you've seen this. So you've seen the basic use case where you filter a collection based on certain logical statement. But that's not the only thing that where can do for you, because it has things like, okay, I just want to have 1. I don't want everything, I just want at least 1. Because, for example, let's say you want to see the first one that matches the condition. You don't care about all the others, because the first one that matches is already enough in your use case. What else? We can say skip until. So it will skip until it finds the one that matches the condition and give me everything else. So as you can see, because the 2 was greater than 1, it skipped the first one only and then returned everything else. What else? I can also say split. This is a very interesting one because we are using a technique that I mentioned before. So we're saving results of this collection that were in 2 variables. So if I do it like this, I will have anything that is greater than 1 will go in first. Anything that is greater than, lower than 1 will go to second. And I will just have total count of 2 in each collection. So like it's completely crazy. So I'm not saying that it will be useful very often, but I already found few use cases where it was really useful for me. So if you look at the first and second now, you can see that's how it worked. Okay. For each. So the thing I found about for each is very often I will use it for parameters. So when I have a argument. So when I have parameter that takes a string, a collection, and there's not easy way for me to define this collection up front, I will just tell for each to do that for me. So let's say I want to see any zone that has like suffix 168, 192 in my DNS. Well, this command doesn't really support wildcards. I think it should, because it's just running some sim classes, some sim methods under the hood, but it doesn't. And I hate this fact. So instead of whining about it, I just said, okay, you know what? I just want to see 1, 7, and 15. For each, generate the name of the zone. Just like inject this number over there. And that's what will be the value for my parameter. Which all is nice and great. And then I have another situation. Okay, it doesn't work again. So the star didn't really produce expected result. Probably again, it doesn't support wildcards. The problem is, it doesn't support collection either. Okay, now what? Well, I don't have to really do that nested. I can just do it outside. So now I'm just grabbing those numbers I want. And for each of them, I just run the command with a specific name as a parameter. So as you can see, you can use for each, sometimes in a way that maybe that was not even thought of. And here I'm also doing something similar. So I'm just attaching the management and RM to the win prefix, and I'm showing any service that has this matches those two, which is slightly different than what I would receive if I would just go get service win star. It does support wildcard, so I could potentially use it. But if I would want to have like very specific two services, so like things that match management and RM, I wouldn't be able to do that straight away. But with for each, sure, go ahead. Okay, so now for the golf. So I'm curious, how many of you know about this PowerShell tree feature with the shortened syntax for where and for each object? I was expecting as much. How many of you know that it supports wildcards as well? Okay, great. So it does. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry for breaking the mystery before I actually showed you the code actually running. So as you can see here, I'm asking for AT star, which will resolve to attributes because that's the only one that matches. If I want to break it a bit, I can just say, yeah, okay. I can just say, for some reason I have debugger running. Anyways, if I would be able to change it, let's just maybe do that here. So if I would try to do something similar, but use something that is not, that is still ambiguous, it will fail because it will tell me, okay, for each object, a what? I have no idea what you mean because you can mean attributes and append tags, and I don't know what to do. But what you can see here is not only for attributes, properties, but also for methods, because append text is obviously not property, it's just a method. You can do the same with for each, with our object, so if you want to be less specific, and again, this is helpful where you really want to win golf contest, because then you can just go crazy like this, just shorten things to the point where nobody else can read it. Maybe other contestants might be able to after they look at it a few times, but yeah, it's not really for humans to read. It's something that I would normally run only in my console. So, you know, just somebody standing behind me, I just run this code. He has no idea what I'm doing, and he's super, you know, I become a superhero because I do something that is so brief, and it still gives me results I want. So for each, it's also another thing that people often forget. It not only can run a method, it can run method with arguments. So you can pass arguments like it would be normal command. But again, you can shorten things. So here I'm running replace with 2 parameters. So I take O's, replace them with A. No problem. But hey, why stop there? Matthias' session was showing us how we can do the regex replaces. Here I'm doing more or less the same, but using a shortened version of replace and calling, actually not shortened, but the shortened syntax for each object with 2 parameters. The first one is the string I want to replace, and the second one is a match evaluator that I want to replace it with, which will just take whatever match I found and run whatever the code is in there. So in this case, normally you wouldn't be able to regex replace a character with the upper version of it. Well, with this one, you can definitely do that. But hey, why stop there? Here, sorry, not F9, F8. So here, I'm doing exactly the same, but this time around, I'm shortening everything I could. Again, goldfish way of doing stuff. Not necessarily for humans to read. It's for people like us to write and hopefully remember next time when you do that what you did last time. Next one, I think that one might be very useful for anyone that writes a script that all of a sudden started to slow down and you have no idea why. The point is that PowerShell is smart enough that if you have logical AND or logical OR, it will evaluate the first statement, and if that one is already like you are sure that the result of the second one is not important, it won't even bother evaluating the second one. So let's say if the first one, when you have logical AND, both have to be true for the whole statement to be true. So if the first one is false, oh, why would I bother the other guys? Like, I don't care. Even if it's super true, the first one is false, so AND will be false. So if you have the situation like that, and you know which one is performant and which one is not, for example, you have your parameter that obviously you have it in your memory, so you know the value up front, and you have to go to Active Directory and figure out what the value for the given attribute for the given user is, well, the choice is simple, right? Why would you go to Active Directory and query it for something if you already know that if this guy is false, the whole statement will be false? And I'm cheating here a bit because I don't want to rerun a command that will take a few seconds. So instead, I'm just doing a start sleep within this condition. So as you can see, the first one responded immediately. If I try it other way around, so I run the one that is taking some time first, well, the result is that we have to wait, and probably we wait 3 seconds, and then we get the results back. So if you ever hit this kind of situation, please remember that if you have the situation that you evaluate two things, and you have one already, like you hold it in your hand, you don't want to look at anything else because you hold it here, you can see it's true, okay, I can look at the other. If it's false, okay, I don't care what's there, I just move on. And same reverse if you have, sorry, this one is actually OR. If you do the same for AND, it will actually have the same consequences. So here actually, for AND, I first made it false. In AND, in OR scenario, if the first one is true, obviously the second value is as well not that important. Okay, we got it back. Now about the special variables. So PowerShell ships with multiple special variables that, parameters that allow you to store certain information about the results of your command in store variable in a variable that you name with star variable parameter. For example, if you use out variable, then you can first of all show results to the screen, and immediately after you have access to this variable. Anyone of you used out variable yet? Yeah, great. How about error variable? I suspect anybody who did any error handling was at certain point tempted to use that variable, right? I'm not saying it's bad, it's actually very good, because if you really don't want to throw at first error that you see, error variable is a very good way to do error handling. So here I'm sure that I get an error, so I can see that, okay, my error is 0, because it will be a collection. Exception message is that, so I can actually do something about it. How many of you used pipeline variable? Because this one is pretty new. I think it ships with version 4. Awesome. So for those of you who haven't used that one, you should start, because this is freaking awesome. Pipeline variable allows you to, have you ever been in a situation where you do for each because you have to get object and then call multiple commands with this object, like get echo on the file and then do something else and then produce nice PS custom object in the end? If you've ever been in this situation, pipeline variable will save you from doing all this for eaches in between. Because if you look here, I have for each object access just to open it, but I don't have any script block there. And I just do select, and in the end, as you can see, I have pipeline variable file, This is actually Dutchism, so I'm just small file, small ACL. And if you run it, the whole thing, you'll notice that now I have a kind of join of, okay, I got the rights, I got the identity reference, I got the owner, I got the name of the file, all in one output without doing any for eaches in between, other than the one that I just opened the access for my files. It's all because this pipeline variable allows me to save intermediate results in the variable that I can access later in the pipeline, which is really cool when you, especially when you have those situations when you really have to do that, and you have like, very lengthy script in the end because you would otherwise have to just like open this, get this everything, merge it together. In my opinion, that one is easier to read as well. Next off, excuse me. Next off, the $caret and $. Have any of you used these variables? Okay, so I'm not the only one. Good to know. Let's say you are in a situation like ours quite often. So you have a script, you run it. It did something. Oh, that's why it was still here. Let's queue that one. So that's why it was read-only. Okay. Let me just exit. Yeah, I know there's typo. It's not about where the problem is. It's about, yes, thank you very much. The point was that if I have the script and I run it, it fails. Unfortunately, it for some reason kept debugging it. That was not the point. Okay, let's just get the breakpoint and remove it because I added it before. So now it's all debugging all the time. But if I run it now, it will just fail, right? And the gentleman in the back already noticed why. Well, if you know, I had a session, Mr. Typo, and I was doing the session for a reason. So me doing a typo is not unusual event. Let's put it gently. The point is that if I have the script and I got it broken, next thing I can do, I can use this $caret because that will represent the first token in my previous call. In this case, it will be path to the file that I attempted to run. So you can do the same. For example, you just run a script, it failed, and you want to open it in editor just to see what's inside of it. Here I'm just setting breakpoint for it. So if I set this breakpoint and this time I actually expect it to go there, and as you can see, as was pointed out before, my variable is errors. I don't even know how to properly say it because it's misspelled. And I expect something completely different. Obviously, if I don't have this variable defined, then indexing to it is not really a smart idea. But that's only it's very useful for that kind of situations. $caret is very useful variable. What about $? Well, let's say you just generated the CSV report and you now want to open it. Well, if the last element of your command was the path to the file, guess what? You can just invoke item and just say this. This is also useful in other circumstances when you just, let's say, you created the file and then you want to edit it immediately. Or you just move the file from one location to another one and you want to open the folder when you move the files. You can always do this with $. So that's that. Any of you know lol code? Lol code. Okay. So lol code is generally a nice concept that instead of writing a code that looks like very serious stuff, you can write a code that is just funny. For example, instead of include standard IO library, you say can has std or something like that. So that's one part of the story. The second part of the story, have any of you used the ability to overwrite the reaction to the not found command event? Okay, Tobias, I see one gentleman in the back. So, those two things combined, I thought, okay, I have so many Git aliases. I don't want to type the whole thing every time. So instead of running them, I will just make sure that they exist as a standalone commands without me defining them as a command. So what I'm doing here, I'm just saying, okay, get the all Git aliases, and this is actually how you do this overwriting the error event. So you can say command not found action, and you can specify a script block that will take some parameters, and you can do some kind of overwriting of the command and just give it back to the engine and tell it, okay, try to run that one, because I know that one is fixed. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. So I just define this in the current context, and now I can just do hi, and it'll give me Git status. I can, okay, give me origin master, and it will try to pull origin master, assuming that the internet works. Yep. Don't worry about the red text, because ISE is trying to be friendly about Git, and Git is not really friendly to ISE. It just throws an, writes to error stream warning information, I would say, or even like information. And ISE is kind enough to turn it into exceptions for us. So let's just generate a file. Now I can just add it. So git add. I can git commit with awesome. I can say, okay, thanks. And it will be pushed to the repo. And I decided to change it to something else. Now I can just do, okay, give me the status, give me diff with please. I can add it again. And finally, because I just want to override the previous commit, I don't want to add another one, I will just say, oh no. And next off, I will say, okay, thanks, bye, which is git push minus F. And as you can see, it was master, it was forced update, as you can see at the bottom, I hope. Maybe not in the back, so that's why I read it out loud. So that's the tips and tricks that I wanted to share with you today. Still pretty good on time, I guess. So let's move to worst practices. So this doesn't fit. Let me just change the size a bit. So the first one, I think that's something that Matthias touched on yesterday. So people, when they start to learn regular expression, they tend to use them for everything that they can, which is not always the best idea. The second one I want to show you is Linko is famous for being fast. I can show you how you can make it slow, even though you think that you are super smart because you are using Linko. Another one is true lies, so I will go into why shouldn't you compare Booleans with anything else. Then I will go a little bit about the backtick, something I hate, to the core. Next off, it will be how people sometimes forget the nice syntax glue that we have in PowerShell, that you don't have to do 1024 times 1024 times 1024. Then something about broken promises and broken code, and what if that kind of does what if, but not necessarily is serious about it. Okay. So let's move to demos. So regex is a really powerful tool. I love regular expressions, don't get me wrong. But people tend to use it for anything that they can, and that includes XML. So let's generate some small small XML. Small XML that will be replaced with regular expression. Okay, sorry. Small XML that I will try to fix by replacing a user with my domain Mr. Beans. Mr. Beans will be happy about it, I guess. And let's then, yeah, nothing happened. What did I do wrong? Okay. Yeah, so the problem here, as you notice probably, is that it got replaced, but not just in the place I was hoping it to be, right? Because I didn't want to change the local user, I just wanted to change the one that is in domain. But regular expression is not able to see the context. It just sees the string. And from string manipulation, especially when you do that with PowerShell and that one doesn't really see difference between large and small characters, this replace is not really working as you would expect it to. So what we can do? Well, instead of using a tool that was not designed for a job, we can use a tool that was designed for a job. So here, I'm picking up on the XML element, and this time I'm using the XPath. That will just tell you, not just take any user, just take AD user, which means that it will just touch one of them. And if I do replace now, and I see the outer XML, that one doesn't look very beautiful. If I would save it to disk, it will look better. But still, as you can see, I hope, Mr. Beans was replaced, but the administrator was not touched, and that was my intention. So because I used the proper tool for a job, I avoided making a mess. By the way, if you haven't seen that one, there's a Stack Overflow answer. I think it's one of the most upvoted answers to any question there. And generally, it's the person that tries to convince you that you shouldn't ever use regular expression to parse XML. I strongly recommend to read it. All the code will be available on GitHub, so you can download it from there. People liked it so much that actually, when there was a contest for like, what should we do with T-shirt for Stack Overflow, somebody came up with this idea. Unfortunately, I didn't see that one in wild. If you know where I can buy it, just let me know. I really want that T-shirt. Okay, so about Linku, about abusing Linku. Let me just check how we stand on time. So here I'm going to show you that it's slow, therefore I'm creating a function that will allow me to do that. So here you can see that one is a piece of authentic code. I think it was one of the DSC resources. So the person is using Linku to be fast. But the way, okay, first of all, the reason to use it is just ridiculous, because what the person is doing is just taking a string and turning it into an array using Linku, and then pipes it, come on, I said performance, pipes it to select. The moment you pipe, you kind of already give up on performance. Let's face it. I love pipeline, but performance, when it comes to speed, especially when you just have one that you care about, is definitely not a stronger virtue of the pipeline PowerShell. So that's the idea from this person. I would say, okay, let's just use regular expression. So then you can see, or actually, I use regular expression that looks like shit. But trust me, that one will just replace slash. Sorry, it would add slash only when there's no slash at the front of the string. So that was the point that the guy was trying to achieve with his code. But we can make it even simpler, okay? Still, that one is much faster than doing any Linku operations and then piping into select object. We can also do like, which makes it even easier because then we don't have to escape the character that we are after. And all those things, if we compare the results when it comes to speed, let me just run all the codes. I'm sure that the function is defined. So, as you can see, his approach is like, what, 10 times slower than anything that I came up with? And it's not about him writing wrong code. It's that because he heard that Linku is fast, well, let's use it for anything. Well, usually that's not the smartest idea. If you don't understand PowerShell enough, converting from C# code to PowerShell like that won't get you far. True, false. This is something I struggle with a lot, and I try to fight with people that do that, because the problem with PowerShell comparing Booleans to anything else is that PowerShell will try to be helpful. So when you compare Boolean to string, it will look at that and say, okay, on the left I have a Boolean, therefore the thing on the right has to be converted into Boolean as well. Otherwise I cannot compare the two. The problem is that some people don't realize that any string, including string false, converted to Boolean, is true. That's why true is false. That's why false is true. Well, not really. That's because now we reverted it, so now we are comparing string to Boolean. Therefore, I see Boolean, I see string here, so I say, okay, the one on the left is winning, so I will convert the one on the right to string now, and true converted to string is not false, surprisingly, it's true. So those strings are not the same, therefore the result is false. But if you really have like ifs in your code, and you, for example, you run things like here I have test path, please don't compare them to anything. You already got Boolean. Leave with that. You don't have to compare every time in each if statement. If something that you run returns Boolean, just take it. Just agree to the world that the Boolean is there already for you. You don't have to really create it yourself. So if I run this one, well, it will work, but the problem is that test path actually returns Booleans already, so I didn't have to do -eq. If it's there, it's there. It's game over. I don't have to really compare it to anything. Same here. I very often see people doing something like that. So they specify something, then they run if, and they will assign the flag. So they have create a flag variable. In this case, it's UNC, and they will say, okay, if this one is matching, UNC is true. If it's not, then it's false. Well, why bother? I mean, really, this one works, of course, but I have to remember that I have to make UNC false, maybe in else clause. Instead, I can just do this like this. Works just fine, because I can just use this variable result, the comparison result, true or false, regardless of what it is, and save it to my variable immediately, to my flag variable. I don't have to create it and then change the value within an if statement. It's not necessary here, if you really want to use it as a flag, obviously. And obviously, you don't have to use match, because match for the paths like this just looks like somebody is really like had too much alcohol or something. Like looks so much better, because then you don't have to escape, double escape, and triple escape, and quarter escape, and just then you forget why you have so many backslashes in the end. Backtick. Oh my God. So people very often, when they come from the compiled languages, they expect something from PowerShell that it doesn't do. So when they run something like that, they expect it to work because, well, I mean, you should know that for each object, it requires script blocks, so you should find it on another line, right? Because it's there, you see? It's there. Why you can't see it? So they will fix it. They will create, they will use backtick to actually make it work. Awesome. Unless they post it on the blog and somebody copy-pasted it. Oh, I cannot change it again. This debugger is killing me now. But anyways, if I would add the space there, maybe I have it somewhere else. Yep. Nope. So here I'm gonna get used to it. Let's say I'm always happy that it works unless it doesn't. So as you can see here, I actually have the example that I wanted to show you by editing the previous one. So here there's an extra space after the backtick, because the only thing that backtick will do is escape the next character that happens to be after it. If it's end of line, fine. End of line is escaped. You don't have end of lines, therefore they are glued together. But if there happens to be a space afterwards, then space is escaped. That doesn't help you, because then it's new line character, and you are back to square one. And again, if you have it on the blog, I'm pretty sure that eventually somebody will just copy-paste it and will complain to you in the comments that your code is rubbish because it doesn't work for him. Okay, let's just cancel that one. And you can get to the point that it looks like that. God forbid. Instead of using this backtick, you should be able to break on so many characters in PowerShell that you don't have to use backtick at all. You can use pipeline, curly, brackets. You can use dot even from version 3.0, comma. There are so many options there. So you really have to you will have hard time finding a situation where backtick is justified. I will get to that in a minute because there are some, but there are other solutions for that one. So in this case, I'm doing exactly the same, more or less, without any backticks. And if somebody will copy this code to his IAC from my blog, it will just work because I don't have anything there that might break just because there are some extra spaces somewhere at the end of the line. So other examples here, you can see that I can just use this one. I can do something cool. I can do even something like that. Still works, no problem. Okay, but argument against people like me, oh, but I have this really long command that like spawns like 3 pages long. I don't want to put it in my script. Then what? So let's say I want to send this email. I probably won't try it because maybe it will work. So as you can see, I used backtick here to save myself from having all those parameters in single, like that long line. What I can do instead is splat. Any of you using splatting? Awesome. For those of you that didn't use it yet or don't want to use it, I can show you how simple it is. Because all you have to do is just generate hash table that generally just have the same keys as your parameters for your command, and then just splat it, just like that. And then, oh, Bartosz, you shouldn't run it. Okay, it failed. So the point is that when you splat, you actually don't risk of this backtick issues. You also can make it dynamic, so you can build this hash table on the fly based on the input from the user, for example, which makes it much more powerful than just your regular running a command. So you can say, okay, if the guy specified this parameter, I will add it to my splatted hash table, and then splat the whole thing at the end. You don't really have to worry about things happening in there, but it's definitely a way to kind of stop using backtick for no good reason, in my opinion. Next one is coming again from the from actual code that I've seen somewhere. I won't give you details because I don't want to shame people. It's just about what you shouldn't do. So here I just say, okay, this is like the VB script style, right? Let's just take 1024, multiply it, and then I have, what, 500 gigabytes, I think. I've seen something like that. Person would actually create a variable named 4GB that was, the content of it would be 4GB. Well, it works, right? I mean, there's no problem. The question is, why? Because you can just say 4GB and get exactly the same result. You just skip $, and you're good to go. And you don't have to define it and calculate it up front so that people will trust you, because when they see it coming from language, I trust it more than the person specifying some random digits to variable. And you can do much more than just that. You can do the mathematical notation with the e minus 2 plus 10, wherever. You can do like the hexagonal numbers as well. They work just fine. There's one warning, because if you would like to try those when you call sim commandlets, they don't know PowerShell syntax. Surprise, surprise. They should learn it by now, right? They had like 10 years to learn it, but they didn't, so we have to help them a bit. So instead of passing the string 300 gigabytes, I just have to have sub-expression that will calculate it within PowerShell still. So the number that will get delivered to sim will actually be the number that the sim can understand as well. Next off, broken promises. So here I have a function that lies to me that it supports pipeline. But wait, why did it add 2 only to the last one? What happened? Well, that's because you don't have process block. Dummy. The problem is that you will find this also within PowerShell, Microsoft written commands. So here I have this nice command that allows me to remove the remote app, and it claims it supports pipeline. Do you see process block anywhere? It should be here, right? Well, it's not. So I had exactly the same experience with this command as I had with this add2. The only problem was that I was actually deleting some remote apps, so I had to run it 3 times to get all of them removed, because the first time it removed the last one, the second time the second to last, and the third time the first one. Yes, I didn't learn the lesson. Afterwards, I thought, okay, maybe I should read the code and see what's going on there. Another one is when you have support should process, but you don't really support it, so you let the commands that you run on within your script or function handle it. So you say, I support it, but you don't do anything to stop, like, for example, in this case, new item, to do something about it. Broken code is about breaks. So if any of you was at the Jakub's presentation about Pasta, so the amount of work they had to do because people write break too much is astonishing, because they had to actually change their module to actually cater for that. So don't break when you shouldn't, because break is actually a statement that you should use in the loops, not in the function. And the problem is that if you do that in a function, well, you not only break yourself, you break others as well. So in this case, I didn't got something else. What happened? Well, if I just do return, so I'm not doing anything silly, I return instead of breaking, here, you can see that, everything worked just fine. I mean, my comment may not be happy, but everything else worked just fine. So the broken one was skipped, but the next one is also still there. Whereas previous one, because it found a condition that it couldn't match, it was breaking, therefore, even not only broken was not in the output, but also something else, which shouldn't be, because it's obviously not broken. Another one, what if story. So any of you use SMB commandlets, or actually functions, for close SMB open file, new SMB share? No? Okay. Any one of you try to use it with what if? Sorry?
Combine it with force?
You don't even have to combine it. So the problem with some of those commands is that they claim they support should process, but they really don't. So if you run them with what if, they will actually happily close all those SMB open files. What could possibly go wrong? You just wanted to see what will be closed, and instead you just killed the whole company because everybody's files was just closed immediately. Awesome. Thank you very much. So let's take a look at that. I think they actually closed the SMB open file they fixed in the recent version of server. So not recent, 2016 actually, it was already fixed. So has already been shared. I forgot to remove that one first. But anyway, even from the error message, see, I said what if, and it says the name has already been shared. It's like, yeah, but I ask you to show me what will happen. And instead, you try to create the share for me. That's not what I asked for. So yes, it was created there. Sorry? If I would remove it now, it would show and create it at the same time. So if I just remove SMB share, let's try it. SMB share. That's nice one. Name temp minus what if. get SMB, sure. Minus name temp. Okay, so that one worked. So at least they don't remove it just like that. Maybe because I didn't confirm it, so maybe that's why it stopped. But this one, see?
So, sorry, that's a serious question. So if you're handling your shoot process, how should you handle stuff that you're doing a shoot process, your what if, but it will throw an error if you actually do it for real?
The question is, what would I do if I really want to not make it broken promises that I'm supporting what if and confirm and actually do support it? So what I normally do is any action that will change the system, I look at what it will do. So like when I write the code, I know what it will do. So if I'm creating like a log file, for example, well, creating it is not really a big problem, but I would still take control over it. So I wouldn't prompt user, do you want to create a log file? I will say confirm false and probably move it within the part where I take control. So PS commandlet should process. So PS commandlet should process will go first, asking, okay, I would create this file with this folders, wherever, and then I would do anything else, but with confirm false, or actually just everything, just confirm false, because then I take ownership. I just say, okay, I will do this action, and even if it includes something like new item, I don't want to prompt user for that, because then you get a situation where you, for example, you do yes to all, and it doesn't work, because it will prompt person every time about the single command that you run within your command. Does that answer your question? Okay. So that was that. Any questions? That's not what I wanted to do. Man in the back.
It's slightly off, but what would you say to somebody who uses string concatenation with a plus sign instead of how you did it with dollar sign within the string?
So I generally try to avoid concatenation like that. I'm not sure it's just like purity in me. So that's one of the things that I didn't want to mention, because that's one of the like best practices that people disagree on. In my opinion, it's better to use -f operator or sub-expression for that. But obviously, if it works for you with the concatenation of plus, sure. I mean, there's no good reason not to do that way. I just feel that it's easier to then figure out what the final string will look like if you use format operator or subscript, because then you know exactly what will land there and how it will land. Whereas when you have this plus, I often find myself, okay, will it be surrounded by spaces or not? I mean, it should be obvious, but for me, it's not. So that's my main problem with the concatenation of plus. But again, it's just like good practice versus bad practice. I'm not convinced fully that it's bad practice. That's why I didn't mention that one.
You also end up using meta potentially using plus, whereas using string formatting.
Yeah. So the comment was that you can end up with the meta characters instead of the like actual concatenation in the end, because of the like if you just have like something that you don't expect, like in the plus some variable, and it's yeah. Any other questions? If not, I have something extra that showed up last Friday when we were working at. So it's combination of the hint and good practice in one go. So I was investigating. The issue with adding hosts to the collection in RDS. Again, RDS coming back. I think they didn't do the best work ever when it comes to the quality of code. The point is, we realized that those commands are functions, but what they do behind the scenes, they run workflows on your behalf using the workflow endpoint. And the problem was, okay, how I can see that actual workflow, what it does. So what I would recommend, if you have a situation like that, you struggle with workflow that is actually in XAML format, rather than try to read the XAML, I'm not sure that's the best investment of your time. Please make sure that you have the tool that allows you to open XAML workflow like Visual Studio. It doesn't have to be Visual Studio, but I actually had that one installed, so it was easy for me to use that. And I don't think you can actually read it there, but you can see the first item here was already a hint, okay, because I thought, okay, let's just try to run the code that is in there and see if it's actually producing the error that we've seen in the output. It did. And that's where we come back to the worst practices. So if you look at this command, it's actually, that's what it was doing. It was asking for RDSH pools with alias star, and then doing where object alias equals something. It's like, why would you do that? If you have an alias parameter on your command, use it. And the problem was that this command was producing error for us, but it was producing error not for the collection that we were actually trying to add members to. It was a completely different collection that we didn't even wanted to touch at the point in time. Therefore, our investigation with the error message, because it was complaining about not being able to translate a certain authorization, like authentication thingy, you know, when you try to convert SID to actual account, right? So it's definitely what it was coming from that. But we looked at the collection itself, some groups on the RDS server. In the end, it was not coming from anything that we touched. It was coming from something completely different. But the only reason why we saw it is because, first of all, that one was producing error because it was the first part was already producing error because it was, if it tried to get all aliases, was failing. And you can see here, if errors count not zero, terminate. Yay! So the idea is here, okay, if you have a parameter to filter, use it. Don't use where object if you don't have to. I mean, obviously there are situations where you do want to use where object. For example, you are new to technology, you haven't really touched it before, but if it's as obvious as here, get RDSH pool alias and you have to specify the name, just use it as you would normally do. Same applies to get aid user. I see that very often. I mean, it's fine when you have 200 users, maybe 1,000 users, but if you have 50,000 users, you don't want to do that, really. Trust me. It may take like a few extra seconds the moment you run it, but if you put it in like bigger script that will do that multiple times, this time will add up, and eventually you will end up with a script that could take 2 seconds and will take 2 hours instead. Really, you don't want to do that. So filter left, as they say it. But this one was actually just like something that popped up last Friday. That's why I decided to add it to this presentation, because it shows, okay, there's some tips and also bad practice in the same time. So I thought it was going to be a perfect way to close that one. So thank you very much for being here. Unless you have some more questions.